She's pretty good about if she's not
I'll
going to
mark her
be.
here for now and then.
That she. Okay. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. This is the time and the place for the February 16 regular board meeting. Welcome to all of you joining us here in person this evening. Welcome as well to anybody who might be tuning in or watching via the live stream. We'll do some quick announcements and introductions before we go too much farther. We'll start with board members here this evening. Starting to my right, we have Zach Wall and Maria Morales. To my left, Sarah Faltis. Immediately to my left here at the center table is Dr. Theron Schutte, our superintendent of schools. To my right, Mr. Randy Denham, our board secretary. And I am Sean Heitman. Let's see, we've got a pink sign-up sheet there on the speaker's table for anybody who wants to address the board during public comment time. You will be given 5 minutes to address the board. Please understand that Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. Also, in accordance with board policy, board members will not respond to comments made so that we can ensure compliance with open meeting laws. With those matters concluded, would you all please join me in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown Community School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
We do not.
Then we need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Faltis Morales, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. My motion carries 4-0. Abby's not here at the moment. She left her sandwich unguarded. A bold move, perhaps. So, no recognitions this evening. So then we will then open the public hearing on approval of the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated costs for the remaining bid packages for the Miller Middle School project. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak to the board on that topic? None. Randy, were any written comments received on this topic?
There were not.
And with that, I will close the public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated costs for the remaining bid packages for the Miller Middle School project. And we will move on to the consent agenda, where we've got minutes from our February 2nd meeting. Jackie, any items of note in personnel tonight?
I do. We have one retiree, Beth Steffa. She is started her career with our school district in 2007 as a teacher librarian at Anson. Some years have been shared with other schools. Beth maintained a space that was structured and reliable, ensuring every student felt empowered to navigate the world of information. Through her patient and steady presence, Beth provided a quiet magic of helping a student find the one, that specific book that resonated with their life, challenged their perspective, or finally turned them into a lifelong reader. Now it is time for Beth to write the next chapter as she plans for her retirement following 19 years as a school librarian.
Thanks, Jackie. Looking at interagency agreements and contracts, there's an agreement with Northwestern College for a partnership from January 26 through June 27 for pre-service educator candidates. A research agreement between McGraw-Hill and the school district for a 3-year research study to measure the use of ALEKS and Reveal Math. An institute site agreement between Center for Responsive Schools for hosting a 4-score responsive classroom institute. And a 3-year commercial service agreement between True Green and the school district for lawn care, grub preventative, and vegetation control services. We've also got a couple of special education agreements, one with Gilbert Community School District and one with Johnston Community School District. Questions about any of those items? Looking at open enrollments for the current school year, there are 2 in and 2 out. No, I'm sorry, 3 in and 1 out. And for the next school year, there are 2 in and 3 out. Are there any questions for Randy on the bills or the monthly financials? Randy, anything you'd like to note in the bills or the monthly financials?
No, sir.
Okay. We've got a couple of donations. One, a $400 donation from the PEO chapter to the health office to support hygiene and other needed supplies for students, and a $1,000 donation from the Assistance League of Marshalltown for district care / hygiene closets. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Morales Faltis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. That motion carries 5-0. Nobody is on the pink sheet, which means Mr. Glenn, Ms. Miller, you guys are up.
I applaud your speed. We've got several people who aren't able to join us today yet. You'll probably see Kristen coming in hot as we go through. This is a little backwards this year in the sense that you all haven't come to visit us before we're here. And I do appreciate your flexibility in trying to find some scheduling that works. As we are going to highlight our MTSS efforts this year, and particularly with our win time, which only occurs in a full block on B days. So just kind of walk through our agenda. We're going to talk, I do appreciate also having the opportunity to come kind of halfway through the year, because it brings us back to our attendance center plan that we shared in the fall, and it gives us an opportunity to just kind of see where are we in that process. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what our goals were heading into this year, where we stand right now, and that kind of gives us a focus on what we need to do for the rest of the year. And then we're going to talk about our current reality, our action steps, and then MTSS at Miller, which is our multi-tiered system of supports. So, excuse me, we're past that. Okay. So our goals this year, we would like all of our students to be present 90% of the time and above, and teachers present 95% of the time and above. So really kind of looking at that chronically absent. We did some looking, and as advertised. Kristen's here. So
Sorry,
you want
guys.
to talking about this and see what we do?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You're good.
We're ahead of schedule. You're fine. Where are you at?
We're just started
Oh,
here.
perfect.
So,
Hi.
currently we are a little under for students and a little
Next slide.
above.
We have that on a
Oh,
slide.
okay. All right. Our second goal is to have 95% of our students with fewer than 2 major disciplinary referrals throughout the entire year. 10% of our EL students who have not yet met proficiency on the ELPA will do so, and they're currently testing in ELPA. We won't have those results until spring. We want to really look at incorporating project-based learning. Our goal this year was to have it in at least one exploratory in each grade this semester. And 90% of our students would be able to identify at least one trusted adult in the building, so someone that they could go to at any time for whatever reason. And then both cohorts, 7th and 8th grade, will increase the proficiency in the number of advanced students on ISAT. So we're just switching.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, I really had my part memorized. I'm going to just punt here. So along with our goals, we wanted to just kind of share where we were at. A lot of times you get us at the beginning and you get it at the end. So kind of a snapshot of where we are right now with our goals and how we're hitting them. So
What's action steps?
Oh, my bad. See, I wasn't my part. Our action steps were to improve attendance through student involvement, relationship building, celebrate successes, and positive contacts home. And so, one of the things that we do within our team meetings, which I think we shared the last time we were here, is each of the members do a positive contact home right then and there, but we also encourage it throughout the week, throughout the year, to either, send a parent square, send a postcard, send an email, or even an old school phone call to a parent and to celebrate their success. Relationship building, even just today, last week we did a survey for our kids and asked them to share a trusted adult in the building, just so we could really seek that out. Of all of our students, we had 528 students take it. That's pretty awesome when it's just a, hey, we threw this in your grade level canvas and we want you to do it. So that's pretty good turnaround for kids to take that. So then we went through and then the kids that didn't say an adult that they had a connection with, we have put them into a different place, and we are going to have teachers really dig into that and see, okay, is there a connection that I need to make with that student? And then, again, with our action steps, as students accrue behavior referrals, we will layer on additional supports that are identified through team meetings. We also implemented a behavior team this year that really looks at that data and looking at the additional layers of support that we need for those students that are really starting to hit a lot of the minors and the majors. Another action step that we are looking at and to really focus on our EL students is the implementation of small group language instruction for our EL students during a portion of co-taught social studies classes. We also really looked at those bubble kids, the students that have been not newcomers. They've been in our school system for quite a few years, but just can't quite get past that, past the ELPA. We actually put them into our EL teachers' wins to kind of really focus on those bubble kids and working on some of that language acquisition with them. And then again, working on that language instruction and vocab and just really digging into that within our social studies classes. And then we have invited teachers to be a part of a pilot study group for PBL, initial implementation of spring of 2026. And Dave or someone will share in just a moment where we are with that. And then strengthen our MTSS in order to reach our goal of commendable by 2030. So we're following that roadmap that Shauna created for us and just really digging into what do we need to do to be commendable. Dave and I have that as one of our tabs on the daily, and we do look at that and what are those things that we can do. If we do all of those things above that we just talked about, will obviously be commendable, but what are those other steps that we can take in order to reach that commendable status?
Okay, so right now, as far as student attendance, 43% of students have missed more than 5 days of school, but when we hit that 10-day threshold, we're down to 4%. Staff attendance is sitting at 2.47. And then behavior, we have 2% of students have 2 or more majors, and so that's only 2 students in 7th grade and 13 in 8th grade. As Dave said, ELPA 21 is still in progress, but we have made some structural changes as far as when and where those kids are getting their intervention, and then some targeted pull-out intervention through social studies classes. Project-based learning, we have 1 active exploratory class in both 7th and 8th grade, and then we do have plans for that to expand. And then Kristen also touched on the Trusted Adult Survey. We only had 9% unable to identify that trusted adult. And so today we actually made that list, and we have teachers kind of targeting those specific students who were unable to name an adult in the building, and they will work to structure that relationship.
Is that 9% of those that took the survey? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you might have to kind of assume that those that didn't.
Yeah, and this survey was sort of a result of, we knew that the panorama window that is currently open wouldn't be closed and we wouldn't have that data, but all students are, that's an extended period of time that window's open, and so we will have that data because it does talk specifically to that in that survey, the panorama survey that everybody gets that we are doing in place of the conditions of learning. So we'll have some good data, but we just don't have it yet.
And in that survey that we had students, it was beyond just a trusted adult. It was also, do I feel comfortable asking a teacher for academic help? And then what is something that you wish your teachers knew about you that they don't? And our students were really quite honest. Some were like, well, I can't see when I'm in the back of the room. Just some different things that were really eye-opening. So they really were honest with us, which is really awesome to see, and then to use that data to move forward with them and how we can help them and what's something that we don't know or something that we're missing. And then we also asked what was the difference in the transition from Lenahan to 7th grade and then 7th to 8th grade. Because we had our own opinions, but we were wrong. And what we thought they would say, they didn't really. So that was kind of cool to see just what those differences were and what they felt between Lenahan and here and then 7th to 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the focus of what we're coming to talk to you a little bit about today is how we are trying to, one of our attendance center plan goals is to strengthen our MTSS or multi-tiered system of supports framework at Miller. And ultimately, it is a framework that's focused on data, and it is specific and targeted for who needs it. And I think one of the things that has popped up for us over time is that we tend to maybe over scaffold. So in other words, we think here's a scaffold that is good for kids to help them reach grade level, and we have a lot of teachers who are giving that to all, when some may not need that. So they're not being pushed as far as they should be, while others are getting the support they need. So we really spent a lot of time today on how are you going to identify who particularly needs a scaffold and what that scaffold might look like. And so it helps us in grouping students in classrooms. And so, our focus today was who's doing the heavy lifting in a classroom. Is it the teacher doing all of the cognitive load and going through examples and then just turning kids loose to do it independently? Or are we getting kids, kids to pick up a lot of that cognitive load and do the work in class and make that thinking visible for the teacher so that they can identify who needs those additional supports other than based on a quiz or another assessment. So through the conversations that kids are having with each other, we're not going to just land on a call and response where I just learned the thinking of the one person who responded while I have 28 other kids who didn't say anything and I don't know if they got it or not. So really just spending a lot of time on those strategies that teachers can use that will help them see the thinking of all of the students within their classroom, and then whether it's in that classroom or during our structured intervention time, being able to give them that additional time and support that they need. So, in short, it's a way for our schools to help all students to do their best by using that targeted specific support when identified.
And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted you to come during our WIN time, which we'll talk about in a second here. Is just so you can see some of that intervention piece. So for WIN, it is what I need. We have it every other day. It's part of our 4-block day. Building wide, we work on some literacy support through Lexia. We work on some building wide math support through Alex. We also do some of our SEL work with In Control during our WIN time. And then we do individual and small group intervention opportunities with all teachers based on what students and teachers request. So when you're there tomorrow, we can show you the document that teachers use to request students. So it could be they missed a day and they need to backload some skills, or maybe they have some lagging skills that they're going to be working on. We did make some changes that we're going to talk about here in a second, that it's not a time to do reassessments. We're really honing in on that intervention, that time to get what they need to make sure that they're at those grade level standards, and that we aren't, that we aren't doing that remedial work, but we're doing that work to get them to where they need to be, so they're meeting those grade level standards and they're on par with the rest of their class. And so we want that opportunity to show you that tomorrow and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. And each of our teachers have different structures. Some are very structured, and you'll see them, we're going to do Lexia, and then we're going to do Alex, and then we're going to do this. Some it's a little bit more, I'm focused here, and we're focused here, and then we're sending our kids to the different classrooms. So we hope that you are able to see just some of those different structures within our teachers' rooms of what that win time looks like.
Something that we've done to kind of take that load off of teachers to allow them to intervene more during that time is we now have the testing center. So Brian and I take a group of 7th graders and a group of 8th graders that may need to make up a test or retake a test. And the whole purpose behind it was just allowing more time for those teachers, taking those kids out of the classroom so that, a teacher isn't trying to give a test to 5 kids while intervening with 5 others. And then having their full 20 to 25 WIN kids in the room. So that has helped significantly just to kind of take that off of them. And we're usually full both sessions every single day. So that's...
And I think that was probably one of the biggest barriers when talking to teachers about why are we having a hard time providing that targeted support during WIN. And they would just say that, I've got a room full of kids who are retaking tests, and I can't bring another group in and ignore them or not pay attention to what they're doing. And they needed to be quiet. And so Brian and Anna really, that was all them, just deciding here's a way to take that off and to provide a safe, quiet space for kids to retake tests. So they deserve all of the credit for that. And Kristen had alluded to a couple of different things during WIN. We have a WIN exchange document, so we don't rely on kids to say, oh, I'm gonna go to Mr. Glenn's room and then wander the halls instead of getting to Mr. Glenn's room. So we know teachers who are rostered to those kids know where they're going. The teacher who is expecting them is expecting them. Teachers can request students, but during our morning home-based time, students have the opportunity to request to go to a room where they know they need to get a little extra support. They didn't understand what happened last time, or they're not quite ready for a test, so they have that opportunity as well. So it's not just teacher-directed. In addition, we have some scheduled interventions. So these are within a student's class schedule. So we started a Student Success Center maybe 3 years ago, and this is our second teacher who's running that, and it's Joe Stoner now. He's got a game, so he couldn't come. He coaches basketball. Initially, to start the year, we have 8th graders who are going in there. We know they have some unmet standards that they didn't meet through 7th grade, and they maybe didn't quite finish up in 8th grade or over summer school. And so they start with Joe, and they're really working on some of those skills on prioritizing their work, identifying what's supposed to happen and when, and it's designed to be short-term, like you're not in there for life. You get into Student Success Center until you've developed some of those skills to work independently, and then you're released back into everybody else's or to an exploratory. 7th grade, that focus sort of starts now. Like we've had a semester with them, and we've identified here are some students who are struggling to stay organized, get their work done, focus on, those academic skills. And so they get scheduled into time in the Success Center to work through that. It's not a punishment, it's a skill building. And it is designed to be short-term in nature until we feel like those students have developed some of those skills to help them be successful academically. And then we have reading and math intervention. So those are the students who are really struggling in those two areas based on FAST data, based on ISASS data, based on class grades. And we schedule them in there. They are students who are testing in lower percentiles, but not identified for special education services. So they're struggling, but they're still considered, gen ed students all the way. And they are just getting in there to do some skill building. And ultimately, we would love for that to go into that same sort of pattern as a Success Center, meaning that it is short term. Unfortunately, right now, we're talking, we have some kids who are really struggling and they're starting to benefit. But we've seen some really good early returns from Exact Path, which you all approved as a purchase for the district through math. And I think in our, Nicole Hempy has a math intervention class, and at semester, her students average 91 points of growth on the Exact Path assessments. And according to Exact Path, they would anticipate 35 points of growth for the year. So we're seeing a huge return on that investment so far. And so we really want to make sure that we can sustain that growth. Targeted growth will be over 1,000 points by the end of the semester if they stay on this particular path. So we're really excited about
And the kids
about
actually
that
like
chance.
it.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of different programs that our kids haven't necessarily bought into. And I've had zero complaints on Exact Path, and that says a lot, and they do it in their reading intervention classes, and they do it in their math intervention classes.
And it provides the teacher with areas where, like, okay, we're identifying a skill gap here, right? They are stuck on this particular skill, and it allows that teacher then to pull that and really remediate that skill to kind of get them over the hump and back on track to continue to grow in that. And so Nicole has done a really nice job with that so far this year.
And there's some really good diagnostics that the teachers can use. Like we had a young man that came and he was in it and then he left and he was like, I really want to get out. And so we're like, okay, let's take the diagnostic. And that could really tell us if he had really done what he needed to do to be able to not be in reading intervention. So it's a really cool opportunity beyond just our fast testing to see where kids are and where their growth is on those diagnostic tests.
Yeah, so that group that Dave was talking about with Nicole Hempy, they actually have already taken, the fast window closed for winter, and their growth was like 2.4 points from fall to winter, and typical growth would be 2 points from fall to spring. So their growth has already accelerated, especially compared to previous growth with that group, and it's an ELL group too. So.
And historically, on those 3 fast testing windows, we typically see a score that goes here, and then it dips in the winter, and then it rebounds in the spring. So the fact that we just saw, we started here and then we moved, we didn't see that winter dip was also really encouraging. And so we're excited about how things are going in those 2 areas. So, questions do you have?
Another thing that we didn't really put on our slide, but I was just going to talk about Saturday school. That's another intervention that we use. It's not a punishment. It's something that's offered to students to, again, reassess, but also get extra help. We always have a math teacher. We always have a science teacher there. And those are the two subjects that a lot of kids really do struggle with. So that opportunity on Saturdays from 8:30 to 11 really opens up the door for some of those students. And it's kind of amazing, some students who don't really interact with school on the day-to-day, but in Saturday school, they are locked in and working really hard because it is a smaller setting and they're working kind of one-on-one with a teacher. And so that's just another intervention that we kind of offer. It's not like the Breakfast Club where it's a punishment for the day. It is the opportunity to come and learn. And we actually have kids that actually enjoy Saturday school because of that one-on-one time. And so that's just another intervention that we offer for students to get exactly what they need from the teachers that are there.
How many kids on average attend Saturday school?
It varies quite a bit, but we've kind of been hovering around 25 to 30 every Saturday. And there are some regulars who don't even necessarily want additional support. They just want a quiet space to work with a breakfast, and so there are some that come every week for that purpose. And then there are just certain times when, it's whatever's happening in class is particularly hard. it didn't help. May not have helped kids a whole lot, but I spent an entire Saturday working on slope with kids and teaching them slope, and we were overrun with kids who needed help with math, and so as we were splitting those up, and so that was it's just really pretty much all hands, and we have a really good core group of teachers who generally show up every Saturday, and even through the loss of ESSA funds, they're like, I'm still coming, because they see the benefit of what's happening there, and you know, and let's be honest, it gets adults up early in the morning on Saturday too, and by 11 you're ready to go attack the day when you may have just been rolling out of bed. So they do appreciate that as well.
And we'll see an influx like around conference time, like once parents come in and see how their kids are doing or not doing, we'll see an uptick, you know, around there at the end, you know, kind of towards the end of quarters or semester, we'll see an uptick. But yeah, we do have a pretty good number, you know, each week of students who attend. What other kind of questions do you have for us? And again, I apologize for being tardy. I did.
We were ahead of schedule, so you're
I
fine.
see. Thank you for saying that.
We'll identify some targets.
Because I was like getting my kids ready for their activities, and I'm like, okay, I got to be there by 5:15. We'll definitely start by 5:15. And I heard Dave's voice in the stairwell, and I was like, oh my gosh, all my fears came to life as they started without me. So I please accept my humblest apologies for being late.
The question that I did have was the same question Dr. Schutte had. I was just going to ask how Saturday school was going, if it was still available, but you guys answered that already.
We typically don't have Saturday school on a week when, like, we didn't have it this past weekend because kids weren't in session today. So if there's a right before or right after a holiday, we've seen those are our lowest attending days. And one of the hardest things to do is when you encourage a half a dozen or so teachers to get up and come on a Saturday and 4 kids show up and you have to send them home, you know, because we're not going to pay them to just sit and do nothing. So, you know, we try to target that time when we can be fairly confident that we'll have a pretty high turnout. It is, yeah, like I said, we've had upwards of 60, as few as 15, but usually somewhere in that 25 to 30 range every week.
And we have a document that teachers add kids, and like last week, there was only 2 kids on the list, and so I debated, like, do we cancel, do we not cancel, and like 17 kids ended up showing up, so I'm like, okay, I'm so glad we didn't cancel, and they just kind of all came and got to work.
It's just a comment, not a question. It probably helps when the student is more alone and, you know, not with their peers. It gives them that opportunity to lock in, like you mentioned, and really focus on their schoolwork and not maybe have some side conversations or try to continue to act cool.
Right.
Yep.
For sure.
I like the results that you're seeing. I think those are great. For the Success Center, have you thought about, or do you, excuse me, connect with Lenahan for those 7th graders coming in to kind of say, here are some of those students that you already kind of know are going to need that type of help?
Yeah.
Rather than waiting until they
We do.
get
We
partway
meet
through the year.
with the Lenahan counseling team every spring, and they kind of go through a document of like, here are our, I don't know if you want to call them high flyers, students who need additional support. And you know, initially we would try to land them into a scheduled intervention, like a reading intervention or a math intervention. If it's more a gen ed student who's struggling behaviorally with prioritizing work and doing that kind of thing, we haven't scheduled them into the Success Center initially, but we watch them more closely, and then we don't wait until semester. Like, we'll jump them in at 3 weeks or 6 weeks, and as soon as we identify that, yep, you were right.
Well, this is more of a comment to, as you know, with state report card testing results, we get compared against all districts for middle school, elementary, and high. A week or so ago, one of the superintendents in our AEA made a specific beeline over to me because their district had pulled data for all districts and buildings across the state that had a similar demographic as it related to free and reduced lunch. And I think when you think about the combination of high percentage of free and reduced lunch, 70% plus for us, and then you add on to that very high ELL second language population, those are challenging hurdles for our kids, families, teachers, et cetera. The data that he's shown me, which they had built their own template to pull from the state data, shown our middle school as well as many of our elementary schools near or at the top of that list, all of those lists of like schools. So, I mean, I think it feels like we take a beating, when we get that state report card, but I think it's important for you guys and your people to know that in terms of comparison to districts with like challenges, we're doing really, really well, and we're probably getting closer and closer to, hitting that commendable mark. So
That's awesome to hear. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
So I just have, logistically, does all of the scheduled interventions, and does that all happen during wind time, or does that happen other times
No,
during the day?
that would be in
Okay.
lieu of like an exploratory.
Okay.
Yep. Now, we do have some kids that do everything under the sun, like orchestra, choir, those things. And so we do have to get creative. And then some students, like are in IJAG, which is an awesome opportunity. We don't want to take that from them. So there are a good handful of kids that do both. So they'll go to reading intervention, and then they'll split, and then they'll go to math intervention. So they still
Within the
get
same block.
both of those interventions within the same block. And we do that with special ed and gen ed.
That's always been one of those age-old considerations is, well, you've got a kid who wants to be in band, they want to be in orchestra, or they really are into mariachi now that we're offering that, which has it's really popular. That might be the draw to get them to school. And if we said, well, you can't be in mariachi because you can't read, and we're going to give you a really hard, we're going to give you an extra block of reading, something that they don't like. So we want to have them connected to school, and we want to keep them connected. So that's like what Kristen was saying. We've had to get a little bit creative on splitting some blocks and getting a math and a reading intervention teacher to work together and realize, okay, we're going to be able to do this. Or we do have students who will go to maybe a reading intervention, one of those scheduled interventions for the first half of orchestra, and then come into orchestra halfway through. Or they might go to orchestra for half the block and then band for half the block. And just really trying to find a way to get everybody what they need and still serve their actual academic needs as well.
And our teachers have worked really well with that.
Yes.
I know, obviously, I'm in 8th grade this year, and so the teachers are right across the hall. So it works really well. And they'll be like, hey, can I have them the first half and you take them the second half? And they just really communicate with that. And I think that that's great. And I'm sure 7th grade does that as well. And then our special ed teachers, same thing, really communicating, who needs who and when do they need them, and working together on that.
And then what is your current PBL exploratory, what is it?
In 7th grade, in 8th grade, it's centered around leadership. So they're looking at challenges that the kids are kind of deciding on and how to lead some change through that. So it's Angie Lovell's, she already had a sort of a leadership-based exploratory, so she's really just developing into student-decided projects and how they could come up and lead some change. And in 7th grade, it is really a little bit more of an interdisciplinary approach with a lot of different projects. And we've landed, with the help of Dr. Smith, on PBL Works, and we have a pilot going with them right now where they have a lot of predetermined projects that students can work on and teachers can get in and work. And so it's really that idea of, I'm not, when you get stuck with, I'm not sure how to start, this is an opportunity to help them get started, and then they can customize that and personalize it and save it, and then, use it again and again, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, thanks for coming in. I'm sorry I won't be able to be there tomorrow because it does sound like it'll be a really interesting
It's something
visit.
We have a jam-packed day tomorrow. Envision is also there tomorrow, working with our user group, so the architects will be there. And this is kind of cool. I don't think we've shared this with you. This is kind of a sidebar, but Dave and I are part of a co-principal study. A gentleman out of Indiana is working on his dissertation on co-principals and basically sought out all the co-principals in the country, which they're all.
Which I don't know how he did.
Yeah, I don't know. And so we have a focus group tomorrow, so we'll get to meet some other sets of co-principals across the United States. So
Nice.
kind of cool.
Yeah. I also won't be able to attend tomorrow, unfortunately, but I'm sure it'll be a
You guys
great
are
time.
welcome anytime.
Yeah.
You don't have to come on a scheduled visit. You are welcome anytime.
But if
I
you
was
want
a
to see
week
William,
early.
come on a B-Day.
What was that?
I was a week early. I was there last Monday. I said, oh, yes, they did change it.
Well, thank you guys.
Yep, thank
Again,
you.
I apologize.
You were making progress in your agenda. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. There's no way I'm doing an AI presentation without our tech director by my side. Good evening. Very excited to give you a bit of an update around artificial intelligence. I'm guessing that in your daily life you use AI to some extent, and at some point you've probably wondered where we are as a school district, not only for our teachers but also for our students. And I'm very thankful to have some cutting edge educators, including Amy, to be able to work through some of the different, what are other districts doing with AI and how would that work locally for us. In January, we had a PD day and we had about 90 minutes dedicated to AI with our entire staff. And we wanted to share kind of a recap of what we learned together and then what our next steps are.
Yeah, so it was really neat because with the help of Shauna and Erica Fenders, originally it had kind of been Kyle Young, myself, Dave, and Shauna as part of a committee to really see how we want to drive AI here at the district. And I think you remember probably almost a year ago now, we came to you to approve a board policy that mostly just kind of protects our students, gives our staff some sort of guidelines, and this presentation will go over kind of the key points of that. So I really got involved to make sure that what we chose as far as AI goes was FERPA compliant, HIPAA, SIPA, COPA, the things that we have to think about protecting student privacy and rights, and really doing that diligently. So some of the things that we've done at a district level, we'll talk about vetting high quality AI that we feel good about telling teachers and students that they are safe using and that it can come alongside and work as a partner with them. So that was kind of a driving force from my perspective. And then the group expanded to include some teachers and a leader like Paula Johnson. And we really got her going last semester to start the conversation with teachers. Okay, maybe you've seen AI. What are some next steps? So what we tried to do for this PD was really say, here's some policy we've put together, and now here are some guidelines, not only for you, but how might you use it with students.
Yep.
So
To start our work, we asked Gemini to craft a vision for us. No, I'm just kidding. We came together and we thought through, what do we really want? Just like what Amy said in a very long version, we kind of squished it together in about a sentence here. And you can see that we've included all of those hot points. The carefully vetted AI tools, we want to make sure we protect our student privacy, ensure accessibility for all learners, maintain that instructional integrity, and we'll get into some of these things, but promoting some responsible digital citizenship. So I believe firmly that our students will be expected when they leave MCSD to use AI, to be really efficient users of AI. It's not realistic that we would ever think that AI will go anywhere. We do have a wide spectrum of opinions of AI, and I'm sure that you've experienced those too in your different working environments. And we can talk more about that. But really, we wanted to come up with what do we all agree upon, and we think that this is, where we land with MCSD and our vision for AI. I'm sure you have this memorized.
You can go to the next one, 'cause So the board policy, basically I broke it into bullets just to kind of remind us all that we really talked about the protection of students, privacy of not only staff but students. Accessibility is really important and a pretty big topic among people who talk about AI. Accuracy, we all know that there can be not only bias, but actually just incorrect things that are being put in front of people. So how do we make sure that students are evaluating what it is that they see, that staff are evaluating what it is that it comes up with, and then truly fact checking. And then transparent and interruptible. A lot of people, we talk those jargony words, but what that really means is there ever a moment where we can say stop? Where we just say, okay, we're going really fast, can we stop? And what we really like, and part of the reason that we land on Google Gemini, is because we're already a Google district. So Google has allowed districts like us, public districts, to use their education tools for free since 2010. So they have really worked with school districts to make sure they understand what FERPA is, to make sure they understand how servers can protect and hold on to student data without the crossover of private to education. And then they also make tools specifically to be safe for students. So with that thought of transparent and interruptible, it really put a target on Gemini for us, because there is a Gemini for education that is transparent and interruptible. We can see the back end. We can see how it operates. We can make sure that there's kind of bumpers on it so that you can't get to everything, but you can get to a lot of things. Again, board policy does talk about some prohibited uses, and we definitely just want to make sure people are using it ethically. That is a huge consideration. Safety is a huge consideration. We don't necessarily have to go through these things. These are things that we put in front of the teachers. We said, okay, here's all the kind of boring policy and stuff that we'll talk about, just to make sure everybody knows that we're all on the same page. Privacy matters, safety matters, those things matter. And then we said, what are some of the AI tools out there? And you can look through some of what we showed them, but a lot of what we're talking about here tonight is generative AI. And of course, there are other things or things that we need to talk about, like what is prompting? And Paula did an awesome job in the PD of helping teachers understand what a good prompt is, so that we can already start to weed out some of the unbiased or some of the biased things and some of the incorrect material. But we can keep going. You can always come back and really take a look at some of the definitions.
I think it is important, though, to think through, like, a lot of you have probably been using predictive AI for a very long time. In some cases, we think AI is just brand new in the last 3 years. Generative AI is really the new. Right, Amy?
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right.
No, and I don't think that we called it that. Like, we just, okay, yeah, I need Grammarly. I can't live without it, right? Well, it's been predictive AI this whole time. We just didn't call it that.
Exactly. So now we're asking it to not only look at all of those pivot tables, but then to also come up with a thing, something written, something visual. It's actually producing something now rather than just searches.
All right. So this is really the I guess the difference or the change for teachers when we thought through how do we provide guidance for them, not only the teachers, but also the students in the classroom. And you see all of these individual bullets. These are different, I would call, like if you had an onion and a bunch of layers, the different layers of AI, starting with when I have a task or an assignment, I really am clear on to what level of AI can I use, or as a student, what am I expecting when I'm the teacher. So if I were a teacher, though, I would not want to I wouldn't want to stay in one bullet for the entire semester, right? So if I am adamantly against AI, or think that it just doesn't belong in my classroom, that would mean I would just stay in this no-use generative AI bullet, the first one that you see there. And really, we're encouraging students or teachers that that's just not realistic. That's not preparing our students for their next phase or their next step. And really, AI is being used at younger and younger stages. Amy Williams had a great example. We've all been to Hoagland for to see their fourth grade leadership team, and they wanted to use AI to help generate some ideas for their leadership, for community service projects. So, it's really difficult to start to draw the line around at what age should you use it or not use it, as long as it's safe for them to be using. So then we have clarifying, planning, assisting, revising, editing, and acknowledging responsible use. That finalizing stage is really just making sure that we're citing it if we're using it. We're clearly stating that AI was used to some extent. Okay, and then this is really important as well. It definitely connects to my curriculum heart. So we bring to you any sort of curriculum adoption. We want to make sure that our teachers aren't using AI to generate curriculum for their classrooms. We have high quality instructional materials, and we expect that those are implemented in the classrooms. We know that AI could be, prompted to create a semester-long course curriculum map in a very short amount of time. We're saying that is not the appropriate way to use AI. So we have to be really clear about what we're not using it for as well. And you can see some other things there. And then, of course, we have our approved AI tool is Gemini, and I know Amy already explained that that's where we're sitting.
I think one thing to note on this slide is that a lot of teachers asked us for an AI detector. Yeah. How can I be really sure that a student used AI? And unfortunately, it's really hard to be sure or not that a student used AI, which is why we wanted them to give guidance on how they could give assignments that weren't necessarily just, maybe just write this assignment, or write this essay, but maybe use Gemini to create an essay, and then you have to go in and edit and show where you track changes, and really take it to a deeper level so that they're using AI. You're asking them to finalize by telling you how and where they used AI, but then they had to, in their own words, create something beyond that. And if you look at assignments a little differently, then you won't need to be so worried about wondering if it was just AI generated.
Okay, and where are we headed? I know we already shared the vision. And I know, Amy, you can probably speak more to this. We currently have Gemini turned on for 7 through 12, and we're anticipating turning that on for K through 12. We've already communicated, and we have had training with our staff during that January PD day. And we have, I think, a communication developed for some parents, but we haven't sent that out yet.
We really wanted to talk with you all, tell you what we've done for teachers, show you the preparation that we've gone through to really try to do this well. And also, I just want to reiterate that currently a lot of AI is blocked on our firewall and with our filters. not everything, but there's quite a bit that is. So when we say turn on, we really just make that link available. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like a flashing light in front of anyone, that they're going to just automatically know, hey, there's this tool at our hands. It's just, we're going to just now allow this link and promote teachers to use it in a really good way with kids.
What questions do you have?
A couple interesting things. I attended a couple of sessions when I was out at the National Superintendent's Conference in AI, and a couple of things that stuck with me were to claim to get kids career ready without AI being part of it would be negligence. So that kind of stuck with me, depending on, they're looking at secondary students probably more so than elementary. Kids are going to use it whether we allow it or not. So what do we do to build digital citizenship as it relates to AI into the curriculum that we already are presenting or working with kids on, in their K-12 experience. And then I think the two other things, the key to successful use with AI is the ability to write effective questions. So, how do we build that into our literacy efforts? And how do we teach kids to scrutinize what AI generates, because no different than reading the news or operating off of what we see on social media. Some of it's accurate and some of it's not. So those are some of the key points that I took away when I was at the conference last week, and saying exciting but scary new world as it relates to technology.
And as scary as it sounds, it's something that we need to prepare our students, especially as they continue to grow and get into the workforce. I know employers are also, looking into different ways to utilize it at work and different options. So ensuring that our kids understand, the safety around it and the do's and don'ts will go a long way than trying to just prohibit it, at all, and then once they are, I don't want to say released to the real world, but, once they're, going to, whether college or somewhere else where it's going to be utilized heavily, they won't have any idea. But I know it's still, scary, but I feel we're doing the right thing and getting them exposed in a safe way.
There is quite a bit of depth of knowledge or analytical thinking when you have to read through a response to a prompt and determine whether or not it's biased, accurate, speaking to the point that you've asked. We start to measure the student didn't spend 3 hours writing this 5-paragraph essay, but to what depth of knowledge did they use when they were analyzing it and making changes and adjustments, if that makes sense. So it's just a completely different way of thinking. And it's a shift. It's here, and we aren't going to slow it down. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are some of the teachers' responses in the PD?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually really surprised, pleasantly surprised, meaning they totally know it's here. They're living it every day. I think there are a few that are, they would really like for us to turn it off and just try to avoid it as much as possible. But that's a very low number. That's an outlier. I think the majority understand that this is the world that we live in now, and we need to embrace it. Very similar to, math and the calculator when that first came about. Although we did have, I think, one response in our feedback that didn't appreciate the connection to the calculator. So, we just had to keep growing and learning, right? And if we get stuck in this box of thinking this isn't, a good way for our students to learn, then the world's going to grow without us, right? So we have to prepare our kids.
And I honestly think they were grateful for the guidelines.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were, I did read that a lot, that, okay, there's a sigh of relief that we did say there is a no use category. Not all the time, but there can be a time where you say, this isn't the time for that. And then there are other times where you can really build on those guidelines and use it more and more, use it a little less. And we weren't really being prescriptive about what that had to look like at this point. So I think there was some, I guess I'll say, excitement about just having some guidelines.
So then those use cases, teachers, each assignment say, this assignment is no AI. This assignment, we're going to use AI this way. This assignment, we're going to, it's kind of an assignment by assignment type of.
Yeah, with that in mind, think about this one more. The other.
Yep,
that one.
This.
Yep, that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so this is exactly what you're saying, where if you kind of read through them, you can see where this is actually saying what they can do with that assignment. And I think that thinking about it that way, where we're not telling you exactly how you have to use it, but if you can be really clear, hey, I want you to use AI, but I don't want you to use AI to create the whole essay, do it this way. And write some, into the instructions for the assignment, how you'd like them to use it, and then how you'd like them to show that they used it. That's where it really starts adding to the instruction rather than taking it away.
That'll take time to grow into. I mean, a month has already passed since this PD day, and we're still learning as an educational system. So I am sure there are some teachers that are doing that for assignments, and there are some that are still growing into this. I do think that the levels of responsible use, the guidance, we hadn't ever really given any guidance before January 16th, so it was a relief for those who are really struggling with it.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. I think it's a tool, right? And I guess to my mind, the most dangerous tool is the one that you try to use without knowing how to use it, right? So it's out there. Everybody is using it in some way, shape, or form. So let's make sure that we're teaching kids the right way to use it and how to use it responsibly and how not to make it a danger to yourself and others, right? So.
And how do we respond when we don't use it responsibly?
Right.
Which I think has happened a few times at the middle school. And that is, honestly, that's a learning, that's when we want our students to learn.
Right.
Like Maria, I know you said we don't want them to have to learn a really costly lesson when they get off to college or something. We want them to learn now with us, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, without our student school board reps here to give the presentation they put together, maybe we can just ask them to kind of morph that into next
meeting.
Next meeting, yeah.
Yeah. And we can talk about chapter 6 and the.
If three of the directors would like to come up so that you have a microphone to do the buck talk.
Yeah, I know. I've already been up here.
So they're coughing all over.
Well, chapter 6 spoke a lot about empathy and caring. I found it to be one of the more enjoyable and interesting chapters in the book.
She should be up here.
Now, I said it. Also, Anel, if you have something you'd like to say, the whole group.
Come up to the microphone.
This chapter's right in Annelle's wheelhouse, too.
It is in her wheelhouse.
I thought it was interesting, a lot of the research studies that they talked about to kind of illustrate how young people develop or don't in relationship to empathy, caring, kindness. I particularly thought it was interesting how they talked about, because of the way society has moved to virtual, since the pandemic, that many young people and or adults are somewhat shielded from the actual personal social interactions, which the authors feel and the researchers feel are absolutely critical to developing empathy for others.
As well as, feeling that they belong somewhere, feeling that they're heard and not excluded. And to piggyback off of what Dr. Schutte was saying is how important that human connection is. It's similar as, we need food and water, similar to those, they also need that human connection, because it does drive their decisions that they make depending on how they feel, if they feel excluded, if they feel like they belong somewhere, or if they're someone.
As you were talking about the research that was in here, I was thinking and remembering and recalling also when I read the little videos you see of a blind person trying to navigate, an alleged blind person trying to navigate, and then when they reach out to take someone's arm to get down the stairs, how some people will move away while others will immediately see the cane and then take the blind person's arm and facilitate their movement down the stairs until they're into a safe position. So it's very interesting to see that, read it, to know. Not that people aren't not empathetic, which is one of the sentences I underlined, that today they aren't inherently less kind or empathetic than their predecessors, but they are more anxious and stressed out and worn down and scared. And that's what I recall as being as a high school principal, as a number of kids who were in one of those three buckets or multiples of those buckets.
I think connected to that, the story that stood out to me was about the Good Samaritan test that they did, and they talked about how you were told you were in a rush, you were much less likely to stop than if you were told that you have time. And I'm thinking about schools, it makes me wonder how we help our kids just take it a little slower, just half a step, take a breath, like you can slow down a bit and check on your neighbor. And we have high expectations we want to push, and we also don't want our kids just to be so anxious all the time that they're not slowing down and noticing what's going on with their classmates.
Well, they also changed the golden rule, as you were thinking about that. When they are helping their neighbors, they need to be thinking about how the neighbor wants to be treated, not how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
So just a little change in that golden rule.
I think one of the things that stood out to me was the section on just like hearing that someone's proud of you, just those few words, and like that's a lifelong type of thing, right? It's not something just for our kids for the rest of your life, just those 3 words. I guess it's 4. But those just saying I'm proud of you, right? Like how that changes people's opinions of themselves, as well as their it was just to the mattering to someone, right? That kind of, not just feeling like you belong, but that you also matter.
Yeah, I think there's reason to feel, as a board, proud about all of the things that our administrative team has brought forward in terms of new programs or clubs or activities, like mariachi was mentioned earlier today. Sports has become, a big thing at high school, and I'm sure at some point it'll grow into the middle school as well. We're definitely making provisions through the construction project for that to happen, but any and all of these ways that we try to connect kids outside of just being in the classroom to be part of something, to be part of a team. I think, the book talked about the story in Mr. Rogers where the king, was always making dictates against doing this and that. And at the end of the day, it was all because people were afraid to ask him to be a part of it. And, it kind of pulled at the heartstrings, to hear stories about, kids getting picked last or not getting picked for a team or not being able to be part of a group when, and the kind of impact that has on people long term. So I think we've done a lot over the years to try to create opportunities for kids to engage, whether it be athletically, musically, in the arts, through art, through, again, the myriad of clubs that we have. And one of the things that they talked about, one of the best ways to help build and develop empathy is by getting kids engaged in service, which we put a premium on that, particularly at the high school with the cord. And I think we do a good job building those kinds of opportunities probably all the way up, certainly from Lenahan through the high school, if not before.
I think too, when I was listening to Leah talk about those 4 words, I think about our research that we're learning about in real skills and the neuro synapses and that are connected, that build when kids feel good about themselves, and what happens when they don't feel good about themselves, how that impacts that brain development. So there's so much we can't always see from the outside with kiddos that's going on the inside too, in a variety of ways.
Well, we're going to get the opportunity to connect with the 2 authors at our next board meeting. So please try to think about between now and our next meeting, either a comment you want to make about a key takeaway that you read or a question that you might have of the authors based on what they presented in the book. I know they're very much looking forward to engaging with us over it.
Okay. You ready, Randy? You got a whole lot to go through.
Yeah. So the next item on the agenda is the resolution for adopting the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the remaining bid packages for the middle school project. So this is the next statutory step related to the Miller Middle School project. We had the public hearing earlier tonight. So the public hearing and the resolution are 2 things that we legally have to do before we can even accept bids for the project. Bid opening is scheduled for this Wednesday at 1 o'clock, I believe. We have roughly 28 or so bid packages related to this project. And the intent is after we open the bids on Wednesday, we'll review those with Envision and the Boyd Jones team. They'll do some thorough scope reviews for all the low bidders. And then the goal right now is to bring those bids back at the March 2nd meeting for formal approval. But tonight is the resolution put in front of you to approve so that we can move forward with the bid letting process.
Are there any questions for Randy?
This is like the all of the rest of the bids?
This is all the remaining bid packages, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We've done glass, elevator.
Glass, elevator, and precast were the
Precast
3 early
concrete.
ones that we did back in November.
Okay.
Yep. So this will be for everything else. Yep.
Any other questions?
I do have another question.
Yep.
When we do bid packages like this, and some of these things we don't actually need for 3 years, like theater seating, some of those items, do we have cost escalation built into these, or just this is whatever they bid, that's the price they get? How does that work?
Correct. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll bid it now, even if it's something like the theater seats, right, that you're not going to need for 3 years. But, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. Then is there a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated costs for the remaining bid packages for the Miller Middle School project as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Faltus? No, Stanley this time? Okay, Stanley Morales. So you fooled Randy too on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
And you may have noticed that we had a tentative special board meeting scheduled for next Monday, which we canceled at Boyd Jones' request. They're just going to bring all the recommendations at the March 2nd meeting.
Okay. Next 2 items are related to Franklin Field. I'll probably cover both roughly at the same time. So the first item is change orders that we received from Boyd Jones last week related to the project. One was from Des Moines Steel Fence Company and the other from Cabana Brown. Essentially, those bid packages that those 2 companies were working on are complete. So similar to previous change orders, this is just a credit going back into the contingency allowance because we didn't need to use it. It was already built into the bid. And then jump ahead to that next item a little bit. So you can see on the agenda there are 6 certificates of completion related to various bid packages related to Franklin. Boyd Jones and architects have signed off on those as being substantially complete. So similar to what we did, I think we did 2 last month. I don't recall off the top of my head. But those portions of the project are, for all intents and purposes, complete. I believe all that's left is the track this spring and then concession building being finished up. So those will be coming forth sometime in the spring, hopefully once those portions of the project are complete. But yeah, that's all I have related to those 2 items, unless anyone has any specific questions for me.
Let's do the change orders first. Are there questions for Randy on those 2 change orders? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the Franklin Field change orders as presented?
So moved. Second.
Faltus, Stanley, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. And then on the certificates of substantial completion, are there any questions for Randy? You answered mine, which was going to be what's left.
What's left? Yep.
If not, is there a motion to approve the certificates of substantial completion for the Franklin Field project as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Faltus, Morales? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
We like
Tried
to
to
be
do
on
my
time.
part, so. I'm just waiting for Amy to put the presentation up for me.
Well, we were on track. Just kidding.
Not it. Okay. All right. So yeah, budget season. So I'm here in front of you all to speak on next steps with the budget process again tonight. So go to the next slide there. Topics I'm going to touch on tonight include a state supplemental aid update. Focus on the first public hearing. As you recall, with the budget process, we need 2 public hearings. So we'll talk about the first public hearing tonight, which is on the property tax statements, which will be going out here in the next few weeks. We are looking at some budget reductions heading into next year, so I'll cover those, and then I'll do a brief timeline review and next steps with the board. SSA still has not been set yet. Early last week, Senate put out Senate File 2201. Their recommendation is setting SSA at 1.75%. This is below the governor's recommendation at 2%. The House was supposed to introduce a bill today. I haven't seen anything on that, so I don't believe that's been done. I know there was discussions about the legislature meeting the 30-day statutory deadline to set SSA this year. That passed last week, so we're still pretty much in a hurry up and wait scenario on that. Regardless, as I mentioned at the last meeting, due to our loss of enrollment this past year, SSA would need to be at least 2.59% for the district not to be on the budget guarantee. That budget guarantee basically gets us up to at least a 1% increase from the prior year, and that portion, that budget guarantee, is funded 100% through property tax in the school finance formula. But so you can see whether it's 1.75 or 2%, we're essentially getting 1% new money because of that budget guarantee. Quick reminder on some bond financing. We're going to have quite a few. Next meeting is going to be a busy meeting. We're going to have quite a few items on the next meeting to start getting the process rolling for the bond financing that we have coming up. As you recall, we have a $3.6 million general obligation bond that'll be referred to as GO Bond Series 2026A. This is what the board authorized to pre-levy during the certified budget process last year. So we've already levied the taxes for the current year. So it'll be a short-term issuance of $3.6 million that we'll issue here in the next 2 months, and then we'll pay it off before the end of the fiscal year. So it's just a 2-month turnaround time with that. That was done so that we could save on interest costs and allow more available funds for the project, thus saving tax dollars that we would have to levy in future years down the road. And then the Series 2026B is what we'll issue later on in the spring. That's again, that's the cycle that we're on. So last spring, due to the large complexity of the project, we're combining between GO bonds, sales tax bonds. We did sales tax bonds last spring of $30 million. We're going to do the Series 2026B issuance for the GO bonds this spring, estimated roughly around $30 million. That might go up or down slightly. We're still working with Piper Sandler to finalize those amounts, but those bonds, we'll start that process in May, June, and then we won't actually sell or issue the proceeds until sometime in the summer. But we'll need to do some pre-levying for our budget for this year. So next slide. Yep. So I'll talk about public hearing number 1. So a couple years ago, there was a law change where it added an extra public hearing to the certified budget process, required cities, schools, and counties to provide information to the county auditor. Then they send out property tax statements out to all constituents in the district. The timeline for that, we have to submit that info to the county auditor by March 5th. They then have to get statements mailed out by March 15th, and then you have to hold a public hearing by no earlier than March 20th. So real tight turnaround. So essentially with this public hearing, what we're having to do, and I'll get into it here shortly, is that we essentially have to basically set what our max tax rate is going to be heading into next year, because once the tax rate and these statements go out, we can't increase the tax rate, but we can bring it back down. So being as how SSA is not set and there's some other unknowns at this time, we're putting in some conservative estimates to get us at what we think the highest tax rate will be, and we'll try to back it off from there as more information becomes known. That property tax notice, so that's the statement. There's a notice detail that we then also have to publish in the newspaper as well as on our website and social media pages. And again, that sets the total amount of taxes that the district can levy for property tax dollars. Next slide, that's just a quick reminder of what that statement looks like. The school is at the very top of the statement, and then I can't read, I think then it goes into county and then city after that. So what's kind of interesting with those statements is that sometimes since the school is listed first, if folks have questions about the city or the county, they may call the school district. I did get a couple calls last year for the city that were not meant for us, but that's how it rolls. The next slide, so this is kind of a more deep dive. This property tax statement basically provides folks with what the current property tax dollars and rate is, what the effective tax rate is, and what the proposed tax rate is. There is legislation out there, I believe it's, I don't remember which parties or which House or Senate. Part of the property tax reform is revising the property tax statements. The effective tax rate tends to cause a lot of confusion for folks because the effective tax rate takes the current property tax and divides it by the upcoming budget year valuations. It's a calculation that can be done, but it doesn't really mean anything. So the analogy I've used for the effective tax rate in the past, we are in basketball season, March Madness is coming. It's basically taking the amount of three-pointer shots that Caitlin Clark made this year and dividing it by the number of attempts she takes next year. Yes, you can calculate it, but it doesn't really equate to much of anything. So there is some legislation that I think they're trying to look at that. So I tell people, look at the current compared to the proposed. That's really the difference that you need to look at. That middle column, I typically recommend people just ignore that because it's just a calculation that tends to confuse people. Then on the property tax statement, if taxes are going up, we are required to provide an explanation as to why that's going up. So for us, we will be having our taxes go up this year. Our increase is mainly due to low SSA and decreased enrollment, which results in us being on the budget guarantee. We are also in a need to levy cash reserve to fund our increased special ed and ELL cost, that are not funded by the state. So if you recall, we did some SBRC requests back in November, December. In that time, that's spending authority that we need for those costs, but we have to levy the tax dollars later on. In prior years, we have not been able, the last few years, we have not been able to do a cash reserve levy because of the influx of the federal ESSER funding. So there's some of a whiplash effect coming out of ESSER that because of the way the formula works, we weren't able to levy in prior years because of the amount of federal funding coming in. Now that federal funding is gone, now we have to levy the cash to ensure that we're providing those services and programs. And then just, an example on the property tax statement, it'll then break down, it'll give an example of what it impacts on a $100,000 residential. And that $100,000 is the assessed value, not a market or market value. It's the $100,000 assessed value. It doesn't assume any credits like homestead, military, or elderly credits in there, so it just takes a flat $100,000 assessed value with that calculation. Then there's the proposed property tax notice. Again, this is a little bit longer than the statements that go out. This is what we have to publish in the newspaper and what we'll provide on our website as well as on our social media pages. That's going to have a more detailed breakout by the individual funds and levies. To give folks some more detailed information if they're interested in that. Then the next slide just shows what that'll roughly look like. As you can see, pretty similar to like the certified budget when we post it. It's going to have it broken down by all the different detailed levels, and like I said, you can see it by fund and how that totals into the actual total overall rate and taxes being levied. So takeaways, if you want to scroll to the next slide there, Amy. It's still an estimate because we're operating with just the information that we know as of today, but because of the statutory deadlines that we have to adhere to and have information to the county auditor by March 5th, and with how board meetings fell, we did meet with, the Finance Committee did meet back on February 6th and talked through some of these items. Legislative action can still result in changes. Example, SSA of 1.75 versus 2%. That will have a bit of an impact on the tax rate, and then there's any other law changes that may come into play. Property tax reform is another one that still hasn't been finalized yet. So based off of what that may come out to look like, that could impact how things look. Again, we have statutory deadlines that we have to adhere to, so we have to make those estimates with the info that we have available. We did try to be as conservative as we could to allow us to back down tax dollars as we continue to work through the budget process and bring it down. But overall, the main probably takeaway here is that right now our current estimated tax rate, max tax rate for FY27 would be $18.23. This would be an increase of $2.27 from our current tax rate of $15.95. I think I did that math right. Again, that increase is due to the low SSA and declining enrollment that results in us being on that budget guarantee, which is property tax funded. Also, the increases that we have in our special ed and ELL and some of those programs that aren't funded through state dollars and have to be funded through property tax. I did do some quick calculations. So an increase like this on a $200,000 assessed home would be an annual increase of $98.70. Or an increase of $8.23 a month. Going up or down $100,000, it changes that monthly amount by about $4 a month. So if you go down to a $100,000 home, it's about $365 a month. If you go up to a $300,000 home, it's about $12.80 a month.
Randy,
Yes.
that estimated tax rate is based on SSA of 1.75
Correct.
to
Yep.
make sure, okay.
Yep.
And I just looked, the House proposed 2.25,
Oh,
just,
okay.
to
No, that's,
split the difference or something from what the,
or come out better than the governor in the
What the
House, or the
governor-
Senate, I mean, yeah.
the governor's is now right in the middle, so.
Yeah. So.
They look
Who
like they're
knows?
compromising.
Yeah, who knows where that'll actually go, but,
Yeah, and when I was doing the calculations and reviewing them with the Finance Committee, the differential between a 1.75 and 2% was roughly about a 9-cent levy difference.
okay.
Right, I mean, practically it doesn't matter because you're still not off the budget guarantee.
You're still on the budget guarantee, it just, it's with the higher SSA, it's less property tax dollars you're levying to fund that budget guarantee, correct? Yep,
Yeah, so you've taken worst case scenario
yep.
into consideration here
Correct.
because,
Just we hope it's the worst case scenario, right? I
Right.
mean,
yeah.
Well, and I think, I know it's usually in the fall that, we have to submit the special ed deficit. And for many years, Matt Kretzinger would come before you and would talk about how the deficit is decreasing and it's decreasing. And we were happy about that. But I would always condition it with the fact that a large reason for that decrease was because we were not able to fill our teaching positions, and forever we filled 50% or a little bit more of our support positions, our para positions, and through creative means of compensating the people that are in those very hard to fill positions, and we finally found the right recipe to get nearly all those teaching positions filled, and surprisingly, almost all those support positions filled, which is a great thing for kids, and it's a great thing for our schools because when they're not filled, people are having to do more than what they're assigned to do in order to cover for that. But on the other end of it, it's definitely affecting our tax rate.
Any other questions on, I'll stop here. This is a good spot for questions before I move into the budget reduction recap.
What are the consequences for not meeting the statutory deadline for us?
For
If
us?
there's not one for the legislature?
Because obviously
I'm
there's
just
not one
curious.
for the legislature.
I'm just curious.
I believe, I would have to double check on this, because I haven't brushed up on it in a while. I believe one, the tax rate just automatically defaults to what it was the prior year. I also believe that state aid could potentially be withheld. I'd have to double check on that for sure, but yes, the level of accountability is much higher for us than it is at the state level, I guess is probably the most polite way I could say that.
Well said,
So.
okay.
All right, okay. And so with all that and some of the other, with the declining enrollment and some of the other financial challenges that we're looking at, we are also looking to help with what's happening with the tax rate and some of those things. We're looking at some budget reductions heading into next year. Right now, we're targeting 2 million, and I should preface this, our budget reductions are focused on the general fund because that's really what drives everything and impacts our solvency ratio and some of those other UAB, some of those other important financial metrics that we look at. Not that we're not looking at the other funds, but for the purposes of tonight's conversation, these are general fund focused. But we are targeting $2 million in total general fund reductions. The admin team, our core cabinet team has been working on these for the last couple of weeks. We're looking to finalize reductions here soon in the next few weeks. But right now, of that $2 million target, we have identified $1.5 million. I would say on the plus side, we have found a way to identify reductions without having to reduce people at this point in time, which is always a positive. So with that said, I'll go through the list here. Feel free to just stop me at any time with any questions. I kind of tried to list them in order from the highest cost savings amount down to the lowest. So first one we're working on right now is participation in a break fix insurance program. So essentially what this does is that it shifts maintenance and repair costs from your general fund into your management fund. You're basically purchasing insurance coverage to help get those repair costs covered, and it's been vetted through the state, and it's a legal program that several districts throughout the state use. But that estimated right now will save us, that alone will save about $500,000 in general fund cost each year. We also had early retirement that we offered this year with the folks that took it. Estimated savings that we're doing on that is $265,000. There is software. So the code allows you to purchase non-instructional software out of PEPL and Save dollars. So we did identify $268,000 worth of non-instructional software licenses that we're purchasing out of the general fund that we can shift over to PEPL and Save. So things like Assembly for board meetings, our Forecast 5 software that we use. Flowpath, yep, that we just use for our ticketing system. The WebEx phone system, that the software that we're paying for that, we can pay for out of PEPL and Save. So we've identified shifting those into our PEPL and Save with the increase in the PEPL levy a couple years ago. Shouldn't be any issues with absorbing that cost. So I've had conversations with Dr. Smith. We're going to look at scaling back summer school and Ladders to Learning. Those are some, obviously summer school. Ladders to Learning is kind of more of a after school tutorial type program. The payment model for that was, I don't know how to explain that payment model from previously. I don't know, Shauna, if you want to talk about that or not. But basically, we've scaled it back to where teachers are still getting paid for that. They're just getting paid at their hourly rate, where before they were getting paid like a flat stipend amount based off of the number of students that they were serving, which was a pretty high amount. So we're paying them on their hourly creative rate now, and then scaling back summer school from 4 weeks to 3 weeks. With that savings between those two is a $212,000 estimated cost savings. As we were looking at non-instructional software, we started looking at just software in general. So there was several software licenses that we identified that we no longer, or shouldn't say that we no longer need, but that we can do without. $73,000 of savings there. Things such as Thought Exchange, our Navigate 360, Code to the Future were some of the software programs that we identified with that. Elimination of sign-on bonuses, the board actually approved that at the last meeting, as Mrs. Wyant shared. That's $65,000 of savings there for the district. The next item is a discontinuation of services with community support advocates. So that's a program that was put in place because there were requirements for our school-based therapists to have some management oversight, and we didn't have anybody on staff previously that was qualified or had the certifications necessary to serve in that management capacity. We do have somebody on staff now, so that's a contract that we no longer need to purchase because we have somebody in-house that can provide those services. So that's a $40,000 cost savings there. Eric Whedon has identified there's a security officer position that came open recently. He's said that that's not a position that is an absolute need of the district, so we're going to just eliminate that position through attrition. So that's another $40,000 cost savings. And then additional ones, termination of so a few years ago, we implemented a supplemental employee assistance program with BHS. We had some utilization from employees the first probably 6 to 8 months of that program. Ever since then, we haven't really had much utilization with that. Employees can still use our current EAP program through Center Associates anytime this was just something that was in addition to what we had through Center Associates. So that'll be a $21,000 savings right there. We've had discussions about moving our attendance coordinator from a 260 to a 210-day contract. So that would be another $19,000 in savings. This year, we've been sharing our career ready counselor with MCC. So this is actual, since we're sharing that, we can get operational sharing revenue with that. So we're actually going to get revenue in for this, so that we're going to calculate that into a cost savings there. So that with the operational sharing through the state, we'll get $16,000 a year for sharing that position with MCC. There's been some additional supplemental counseling support at MHS, just somebody that's been putting in an additional 20 hours a week since the start of the school year. With some of the changes that have gone over there, that's something that we can discontinue heading into next year. And then the last item was we switched our shredding document company back in January, I believe, is when we brought that agreement to you guys. But the new company is about half the cost of what we're currently paying, so that'll be a $12,000 a year savings there. So that is what we have identified up to this point in time, which again totals roughly 1.5 million of our $2 million target.
And just for a little context, Randy, the general fund budget is $80 million? What are we looking to cut out?
Yeah. General fund budget's 85 million.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the first item you had was shifting.
Yep.
The insurance is shifting funds from general fund to management fund. Where do we stand on our management fund budget?
We have a healthy management fund. We've had some reserves the last few years because of not offering, not offering early retirement. We were kind of building it into the budget in the event that we did offer early retirement, but then we didn't. So we've had some surplus build up over the last few years. Also, the work comp and property casualty renewals have come in lower than anticipated the last couple of years with some things that we've done, like purchasing 2 years ago was purchasing the deductible buy down, and then this last year we EMC and the safety group introduced a storm protection fund that we are a part of, which has helped save on our total overall premium. So there's some reserves there, but thinking ahead, yes, might have to see how that factors into the tax rate and being able to do that. But what we're currently levying for management, what we're projecting to levy for management, as long as things hold, that we should be fine.
Our original target was 1.5, and we got to about 1.6 or something, and I had suggested that we just go ahead and continue to try to find opportunities to save to get closer to 2. I'd rather over reduce or make adjustments, because some of these things are budget adjustments versus reductions, versus under, without knowing for sure what the landscape's going to look like next year. I truly, as I've tried to figure out with the enrollment decline, which was somewhat unusual for us, I think it's probably tied to the pressures on immigration more than anything. So that could continue into the next year or two. And so we just need to be prepared for the possibility that things might get a little bit worse before they get better down the road. But, as we're making these adjustments, we're doing it with the idea of a 3 to 5 year forecast too.
Okay.
Trying to get us to keep us in a position of strong financial health without, with a priority and not wanting to create hardship for kids and or staff to the extent possible.
Well, we appreciate you guys looking into the budget and seeing what we can do right now to avoid other things.
Difficult decisions in the future. Make some not so difficult choices now to avoid some of the very difficult ones we will have to do later.
There's no other questions on those reduction slides. I'll just quickly touch on just the next 2 slides, just reminder dates. March 2nd, we'll be setting that public hearing for the first public hearing for the certified budget. With the budget guarantee, we do need to formally adopt a resolution for the budget process, so I'll bring that forth at the next meeting. And then we'll have several items related. I just got those items from the attorney actually earlier today, so there'll be some action items at the next meeting related to both Series A and Series B GEO bond issuances. And then looking ahead, March 23rd, we'll do that first public hearing, and then the budget presentations following that. So that's the tentative timeline that we have in place right now. And as information becomes available, the good thing is that we have some flexibility to, if we need to move like the March 23rd and the April 6th dates back in meeting, we can do that. We have till April 30th to finalize the budget. So we did build ourselves a little bit of room in right now so that we can adjust for any upcoming things that happen to pop up. But otherwise, that is all that I have for this evening until the next meeting.
Any other questions for Randy or any other comments? Okay, thank you, Randy. And we'll move on to policies.
We've got one policy coming back to you as a first reading, 501.15, open enrollment transfers, procedures as a receiving district. As you recall, at the last meeting, we talked about how we made some adjustments to this policy to reflect the current laws that relates to transportation of students. I would recommend, we have not changed anything from what was presented at the last board meeting. I'd recommend approving this first reading and waiving the second reading.
Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to amend 501.15 and waive the second reading?
Did you have a question?
Did you have a question, Leah?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about open enrollment and athletics and how that works from an athletics standpoint. I was looking to see if it had that in here.
In what regard?
Being able to participate in athletics from an open enrollment standpoint, and is there a amount of time that you cannot participate in athletics if you open enroll?
I don't think there is anymore.
I didn't think so
No,
either, but I was
there's a
thinking-
90-day rule.
I think it's addressed in a different policy. I don't think it's addressed in this one.
Okay. And then what about if you were open enrolling out and you open enroll back in? Does that same 90-day rule apply?
So if you rescind your open enrollment,
Yeah.
So that's considered a general we would need to look deeper into that question. I wasn't prepared tonight to answer that. I know I'm dealing with a situation right now that is a person who's open enrolled out and has been for most of their tenure wanting to rescind, and there is a 90-day not able to participate in varsity athletics. They can participate in anything other than that, unless they have founded cases that would fall under the exemption, just like with open enrollment requests. Bullying and harassment would be an example. Mental health issues would be an example, but there has to be documentation to support that particular claim.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
other questions? Sarah, you made a motion to amend and waive the second reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Faltus Morales, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. And then I had three policies. 302.5, evaluation of the superintendent. 302.5R1 is the regulation under evaluation of the superintendent. And then 302.5E1 is the evaluation report. And those are all, no changes are recommended, Mark is reviewed. Any questions? Okay, then those will be marked as reviewed. Abby, any additional communication items this evening?
Not at this time.
Okay. Committee reports. Finance Committee met, as Randy noted, to talk about the stuff that Randy presented on this evening. Were there any other committees that met since our last meeting? Okay.
We talked about AI and
Trying to use the mic. Are you talking SIAC?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to avoid coming up here today, but apparently I can't. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we met as a SIAC committee last Wednesday evening, and we talked about AI, which you already heard about AI. That was one of the big agenda items. The other one was about our bullying and harassment data and what it looks like currently. It was in the board news and notes, but the summary is we took a look at what the data was telling us at the end of the May of last year and kind of compared it to where we are now in our present time. We currently have 12 incidents that have been reported as bullying and harassment. And we looked at how the law changed as of July 1st. And we cannot really look at a perceived trait or characteristic anymore. It just has to be repeated and ongoing for us to consider it a bullying incident or harassment incident. So compared to last year's May data, there was about 42 incidents in May of the ending the school year, and we're up to like 12 right now for this current school year. So that's the gist of it. And then we discussed, again, reviewing our board policy to make sure it aligns with the new state law as far as because there is some wording and some changing that we do have to update because it still has the trait and characteristics within our board policy, so we'll have to update that and make the adjustments. Other than that, continue to work on making our students feel belong and like a safe place for them to join, just like our chapter. So, thank you.
Thanks, Anel.
Yeah.
Okay, no questions, good. It was very thought-provoking.
All right, looking at reminders, Leah, you've got initial review policies for March 2nd.
Okay, I will be dialing in for that meeting.
There is a board visit to Miller Middle School tomorrow. I don't remember what time.
Who
Oh, that's right.
planned?
I think I can go.
Okay. Leah, you said you were going or no?
I'm not going. I'll be
Right.
out of town.
Thank you. And I'm sure Eric will not be able to go because he's teaching.
I cannot go at noon tomorrow. I didn't have it on my calendar. I think maybe because it moved.
I went last Monday, and I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
Sean not did send an email and updating it. So it was my fault for,
I can check with Liz and see if she's able to. Wouldn't surprise me if she was able to be there.
Do you remember, Shauna, who on the calendar said they weren't? I know Sean and Maria. I don't think we had, or Liz hadn't acknowledged. Zach, or you? You able?
I need to look at
It
my
wasn't on
work
my
calendar.
work calendar.
I don't have it in front of me.
I didn't get it on
I
my
think I'll
work
be
calendar
able
when
to
it
go, but I just need to
changed.
double check.
Okay. And then Woodbury is presenting at the March 2nd meeting.
Is there a visit set for that?
So I assume we'll have a visit.
March 2nd?
Is,
When they present?
that's when they present, yep.
No, we don't have it scheduled yet. February 20th is when it was recommended, but Theron and I are gone for JA. So,
Okay.
to be determined.
Okay.
Leah, is it better if I include your work? Okay. Rather than like the Marshalltown reference?
Okay. Any items for a future meeting agenda? Okay. What have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
Miller's new intervention process and the tools that we've purchased for them seem to be driving improvements, at least with their preliminary numbers. So I think that was great to hear about.
I mean, we're getting just almost there on at least getting bids accepted to start that Miller project, right? So we're almost there. So that's good.
And I think we'll have to remind people that those funds are different funding source than the general fund for which we are making adjustments and reductions that largely support teacher salaries, benefits, or employee salary benefits and curriculum and related things. So But yeah, it's a $98 million project that we'll be embarking on here shortly.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we'll take about a 5-minute break or so and then go into closed. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.